land of Adullam. It's the area where David hid in the cave. And I think about Roland's grandfather, and he worked among the poorest kids, little children in China, and they were having to literally crawl down from the coal mines. They were so skinny when they were little and skinny. They would push them in there, 8 years old, 9 years old, to mine this coal. And when the Lord spoke to his grandfather, H.A. Baker, about a place of refuge for the orphan, for the abandoned, for the broken, for the dying, he said, call it Adullam. So the first children's place of refuge in our family line was called Adullam. So this is a really special place for us, and a place where we remember just how David went and he found the rascals. Or the rascals found him. And sometimes, people talk all the time about getting the cream of society, the top of the top, the best of the best, and reaching them first. Well, you look at David, and he just went low, and he was a shepherd, and he went to a low place, and he just was there worshiping in his simple way. And the rebel rousers, the little guys came to him. And I think we can learn a lot from that, just from the way that he led, from the people that he led. He took in the broken, the abandoned, even the ones that had an attitude. And the Lord often lets us live in a place where we're surrounded, especially if you're surrounded by you, where there's an attitude, where there's stuff going on. And they were there in this cave, and the Lord really spoke to David. And in this place, we learn about servant leadership. We learn about what it means to really love and to prefer one another. And so if you remember the scripture, some of his mighty men went out because he was just so thirsty. And if you're out here in this desert, you can understand thirst. And he was just so thirsty. He was like, I just want water from Bethlehem. And these amazing men went out and risked their life to bring David water. What did he do in that cave? He just poured it out. He just poured it out, and he said, I'm not going to drink this water. I'm not going to take something that you risked your life to give me. I'm not going to take it. I'm going to identify as a servant. I'm going to identify with you. And Jesus always did that. Yeshua always did that. He literally poured himself out for us. He just said, I'm going to give everything away for you. I'm going to love you, and I'm going to love you. I'm going to love you. And then he says, oh, would you not understand what it means to honor one another, to love and to honor? I found it extraordinary how David honored even the one who was pursuing him. There was Saul, and he was just after him, and he was so hurting, and he was so broken, and he'd had to run like a little rabbit. And some of you feel like that. You're just running, and you're always thinking the enemy's pursuing you, and maybe the enemy is pursuing you. I don't know what your life is, but Saul was pursuing David, and David's just this little worshiper with this band of rascals around him. And finally he has an opportunity to kill Saul. He has an opportunity to show who he is and become this king that he knows he's called to be. But instead he honors, instead he waits. Instead, he trusts in the sovereignty of God, not trying to make his own promise come to pass. I think that's really important for us. Some of you maybe have prophetic words you've had for like 20, 30 years. Some of you are still 18 years old, so you've had a prophetic word for a year or two, and it's like, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to make it happen. And you just need to wait. And sometimes the best place to wait is a cave. Seriously, you just get in a cave and worship. Just get in a secret place and worship. So David was in this cave, and Saul had to go in there to find a place to relieve himself. And we all know the story. David actually cut the corner of his garment off. Can you imagine? I mean, he could have killed him right then. And instead, he cuts the corner of his garment off. And he just humbles himself. And later on, Saul would find out that David had this opportunity to kill him and didn't do it. So, Lord, I really pray that you would teach us from this story, God, that we would hide inside your heart, that we would allow whoever you surround us with, Lord, that we would just welcome them in, that you would always be a place of refuge for us. I believe God wants to be a place of refuge for us. He wants to provide all of us with a safe place. And he really cares about the broken. He really cares about the disenfranchised. He really cares about the poor. And I feel like as we read this place in the history of the people of Israel, the Jewish people, we read this beautiful piece of history, we learn about God's heart. David could have had the most amazing bunch around him, and yet he chose, or he allowed God to choose these rascals. Who are we to choose? Who's around us? Who are we to choose? We just lay it all down, lay it all down, and let God have his way. So hide in his heart and know that you're safe. In our lives, we're really called to honor, just to honor all the ones around us, whether they're with you or against you. There's this place of honor, there's this place of radical love that looks like something. And I think all of you in your life have people who are challenging for you. I know I'm challenging for a lot of people, but it's this place of just trusting and honoring and trusting in the sovereignty of God. And David had this promise over his life. He would be king. He would be king. He would be someone who the favor of God would rest upon, and he would literally be a ruler. And yet he just went low. And the Lord calls us to go low. It says that if you would humble yourself, the Lord would exalt you. But it's not humbling yourself because you want to be exalted. It's humbling yourself because you're following in the footsteps of Yeshua. He always walked low. He always preferred the others. He just gave his life away. David was such a powerful type of a leader that went low. He went so low and he just kept honoring, and he didn't push himself ahead and try to make his promise happen. We are not meant to make our promise happen. We're literally meant to live our life low and slow, prefer others better than ourselves, lay our lives out like a drink offering, just being poured out at his feet, being poured out for the sake of others, and allow God to fulfill our destiny, allow God to fulfill our purpose. Literally believe that God is powerful enough to take any little laid down lover and pour his presence and his purposes in him. So just walk that close to God. And I really feel like sometimes we just need to hide in a cave. We just need to be alone with God and realize again, I'm just going to hold out in the secret place and trust as I worship in this place, as I just lay my life down here, that what you promised you will fulfill. Here's David in 1 Samuel 22. So David walked from there and escaped. He literally escaped to the Cave of Adullam. And when his brothers and all his father's house heard about it, they went down there to him. Anyone who is in distress. Are you ever in distress? We can hide in the heart of our King of Kings. We can hide right inside of his heart. There's a safe place there. Adullam is a safe place in the Bible. God's calling us to this safe place. It's not always a palace place. In fact, most of the time it's really a simple place. But we hide there in that place. Who went with him in that place? It says those who were in distress. Anyone anyone who had debt, anyone embittered, rallied around him, and he became their leader. There were about 400 men with him. I think that's astounding that this would-be king, this one who one day would be king, was surrounded by these rascals. He was surrounded by the rascals, and he discipled them. He just loved on them and loved on them and loved on them. And is kind of funny how many times they really didn't get it. You can find it here. You know, they wanted to honor their future king. They wanted to honor David. And so we look at 2 Samuel 23, and they really didn't get who he was. They didn't really see who he was. And so it talks about something they did that really freaked out. It really freaked David out. But their hearts were right. But the fact is, David could not receive their offering. And it says, once the 3 of the 30 chiefs went down and came to David at the Cave of Adullam during the harvest, while a troop of Philistines was camping in the valley of Rephaim. David was there in the stronghold while the garrison of the Philistines was in Bethlehem. And David said longingly, "Oh, who would get me water to drink from the well, which is by the gate of Bethlehem?" So he was really thirsty. I don't think he was fake thirsty. He was really thirsty. And so the 3 mighty men broke through the Philistine lines, drew water from the well of Bethlehem by the gate, took it, and brought it to David. However, he would not drink it. He poured it out to Adonai, and he said, "Far be it from me, Adonai, that I should do this. The blood of the men who went in jeopardy of their lives." So he would not drink it. These things the 3 mighty men did. Are you someone who will just pour out your life for the poor of the earth? Would you pour out your comfort? Would you pour out your abundance? Would you pour out your prosperity? Would you pour out your rights? Would you just pour them out and say, like Paul, "I'll be a drink offering unto the Lord"? I mean, David could have been really misunderstood. His followers could have really been upset with him. Here they risked their lives to bring him water, and he wouldn't drink it. Here they risked their lives to bring him this longing of his heart, and he wouldn't drink it. Sometimes people want to honor you, and the Lord just says, lay low. And then lay lower still and take the lowest place. If you can take the lowest place and trust God, I really believe as you hold on to Yeshua, you hold on and you just empty out, and you just trust Him. And you say, do you want this space? Take the space. Do you want the water? Take the water. Do you need more? Take more. And you just give your life away. There's always enough. Jesus is always enough. Yeshua is always enough. I want to tell you a story about a revelation I got about Yeshua always being enough. I was in a place of really a tired place, and maybe in a tiny way I could understand a little bit of David's life here. I was being pursued by people from another nation, and our lives were in danger, and we were really exhausted, and we just wanted to give up. We were just so tired, and we had 320 children with us, and we didn't have a place to live. We didn't know where to go. Now, these children they weren't as powerful as David's guys. These children were like the ones that were just thrown out to die. They're in shredded rags. We had nowhere to live. We lost our homes. We were just out there. And I went away just for a few days to go and worship in this place that I didn't understand. And for me, it was a place like Adullam. It was a last-ditch place to just take refuge, to find a place where I could just find a place away from the chaos and away from the storm and away from being pursued. by what looked like an enemy. And as I was there worshiping, the Lord literally crushed in on me. And I remember I fell out and I saw something I didn't want to see. I saw all these children. I saw tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of children. They were all different races. They were African, they were Asian, they were Arab, they were Jew, they were South America. They were all these children, all these different faces. And I heard the Lord say, give them something to eat. And I started screaming. I mean, I screamed this gut-wrenching scream. No! That's not something you're supposed to cry out to God. But I cried out a no. With all that was in my heart, I just cried out a no, no, no. And then I saw the eyes of Yeshua. I saw his burning, fiery eyes, and he just looked at me, and that was it. I was completely undone. And then I saw him, and he ripped a piece of flesh out of his side, just ripped it out. And it looked like a piece of flesh. And he stretched out his hand and he said, feed it to the children. I was so shocked by that, and all I could think of is, how can you feed flesh to a child? I didn't know what to say because of his eyes. It was as if I had my no ripped out of me. So he stretched out his hand and I took his flesh in my hand, and in faith I stretched out my hand to the first child, and that flesh turned into bread. It turned into bread, and Yeshua said to me, I died that there would always be enough. He died that there would always be enough. And I began to feed the children, all these different nations. And the food kept multiplying. The bread kept multiplying in my hand. If you would fix your eyes on Yeshua, if you would just fix your eyes on the beauty of who he is, he would multiply himself for you. The next thing that happened was something that absolutely changed my life. It changed everything for me. It changed the way I see. It changed the way I feel. It changed the way I move. It changed me totally and completely. He took a cup, and it was a poor man's cup. It wasn't a jeweled cup like you might have seen in a painting somewhere. It was a poor man's cup. And he filled it, and blood and water flowed from his side. Blood and water, the blood and water of the glorious Lamb who was slain. It filled the cup, and he put it out. He held it out to me, and without speaking, he asked me, will you drink this cup? And I knew it was a cup of suffering and joy, a cup of suffering and joy. The cup that Yeshua calls us to drink is a cup of suffering and joy. It's seeing what he sees. First, we need to see the people. Yeshua was a Jewish man, God-man. He came as a Jewish man. He came as a Jewish baby, and he wants us to see. He wants us to understand and to love the people of this land, to love them, because he loves them. He loves them with everything within him. And he loves every child on the face of the planet. He loves every human being. We are created in the image of God. He loves every human being. And we're called to honor every human being, even the ones that might be pursuing us, that might be against us, that can't stand us, maybe even the ones that hate us. What does love look like? Yeshua showed us what it looks like. Love looks like something. It's not just words. Words are cheap. Words don't cost anything. But when Yeshua gave himself away, he gave all of himself away. He trusted, and he said, now come and follow me. He is and will be forevermore the only Savior. But he asks all of us, the ones who follow him, he says, follow in my footsteps, drink the cup, partake of the suffering. Suffering is to see what he sees, to see the outcast, to see the broken, to see the dying, to see the poor, and give them something to eat. Spiritual food, yes, spiritual food is powerful, but also physical food. If someone has no water, then we are called to bring water to the thirsty. If someone has no food, we're called to bring food to the hungry. Not just the ones who love us, but to everyone who is thirsty, to everyone who is hungry. God is calling us to believe that he died, that there would always be enough. The cup of joy is knowing Yeshua is enough. He really is the living one, the King of Kings, the glorious one who paid the price that we could be free, who paid the price so that we could enter in and we could be face to face with a living God, so that our little lives could be laid down at his feet, that we could say it's okay to be nothing, to lay our life down on this earth, to walk a life of humility, to wear a brown robe, to live a life that is poured out, to prefer others better than ourselves, Philippians 3. Philippians 2 and 3, what does it look like to live a life of love? Drink the cup, eat the bread. There's always enough because he died and he rose from the dead. Follow the Lamb. He's worthy. 2/3 of our lives we're still at home in northern Mozambique, and for a while we were getting stoned quite frequently, and just really not being welcomed into the villages. And I was asking the Lord, is this necessary? One time I got stoned in my lower back and it really hurt. And I was just saying, is this necessary? And the answer that I got was wonderful. And I wish I had asked the question before. And he said, usually not. And I thought, what? Usually not. He said, no, you need to understand you're called to honor the chiefs. And I said, what does that mean? He said, honor the chiefs. Now, the chiefs, wherever we went, 99.999% of the chiefs were all people of another faith. So what does it mean to honor them? It was going low. And I remember the Lord speaking to me about a simple way I could honor them. And it might sound funny to some of you, but he said, oh, I want you to make them coffee, and I want you to have the people of other nations and the Mozambicans of every province go lower than the chiefs, tell them what their profession is, tell them what their nation is, and just honor the chief and listen to the chief. Sometimes we think as believers we know it all, we have it all, we're just all knowing, and everybody else is in the dark and we know everything. Well, there's something that we can learn from other human beings, from other cultures, from other people. God knows we can learn so much from the Jewish people. We are called to listen and to honor. And I mean, this book here, it is given to us by the Jewish people, inspired by Holy Spirit. So surely we need to learn something and honor the chiefs and honor the people of other nations. And so what the Lord really impressed upon me was to make coffee. And I thought, well, I don't know if they'll like it. And he said, don't let somebody else make it yourself over the wood fire with this big pot. Just make this coffee. And I thought, great, okay, I love making coffee, and I love serving, and I love being out in the bush. So we just gathered up these sticks and boiled water, and we brought some French plungers and made this coffee, and I know Mozambicans like sugar and milk, so put a lot of sugar and milk. I like my coffee black, no sugar, just straight. But I knew how to honor them, that they don't like bitter tea, so I'm sure they weren't going to like bitter coffee. So I said, okay, Lord, I'm going to do this. And at the time, a kilo of coffee was $90. I thought, what a crazy thing to do for people who work among the poorest people on the planet. Like, isn't that extravagant? Doesn't that look foolish? Like, why would we spend that kind of money doing something we don't understand? And yet this compelling of the Lord was do this. So I just said, okay, God, I'm going to trust you to bring coffee. And he did. He's always brought it. We always have lots of coffee, and we don't have to pay the $90 a kilo. But I was willing to, because if God asks you to do something, you don't just say, oh, I'm going to worry about what it costs. You just do whatever he says to do. And obedience is better than sacrifice. And there's something about just trusting him. And if he tells you to do something that you don't understand, trust him enough to do it. So I made this coffee, and I went really low, and I'm sitting in the dirt, and I handed it to the first chief of the village, and I handed it to him low and slow, and I looked up at him and handed him this coffee and spoke in his local dialect. And as he started to drink this cup of coffee, tears fell down his face. Tears just started pouring down his face. And I thought, oh no, he hates this coffee. I need to tell him, you can pour it out, it's okay. I was just trying to honor you, and I might have gotten it wrong. And he choked back the tears, and he said, no, you don't understand. And I said, no, I don't. Really, it's okay if you don't like the coffee. He said, no, the colonists, for so long, they told us that we as Mozambicans could never drink coffee, that coffee was only for the white man. And so we were never, ever allowed to taste coffee. And what happened today is you gave us coffee, is we felt that you had seen us the way that we are meant to be seen. And I was undone that day, because the Lord really spoke about honoring the chief, and without knowing, we were able to reverse a curse in some small way of colonization and go low and go lower still. So this is a powerful thing about leadership. It's a powerful thing about life. God is calling us to go low and honor the chiefs. Listen. Listen, listen, listen. Eat of Yeshua, drink of Yeshua, and walk in his footsteps.